What was the first animated feature film? A lot of people might think that it's Snow White, released in 1937 by Walt Disney. However, it is not. It's actually El Apostol, released in 1917, but it was lost in the fire. Very sad. The next oldest animated feature we have is Dia Bentoya Desa Prince Ahmed, or The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, released in 1926, more than 11 years before Snow White, that surpassed all public expectations with its remarkable hour-long epic journey in an era when 10 minutes or less was the norm. The film's iconic cutout silhouette animation was a signature of its genius, yet overlooked author, Lotte Reiniger. The Adventures of Prince Ahmed was one of her first ambitious projects that, despite all the doubts from distributors, made it on a private sponsored screening in Volksbühne, Berlin on 2nd May 1926. The film was enthusiastically accepted by its audience of 2,000 people, among whom was well-known German director Fritz Lang, and later on finally made it to the theaters. Frank Warschauer, German journalist, shared his impression of the film, pointing out Lotte's significant role in challenging the German cinematography and reinterpreting the meanings of animation through Eastern art of shadow theater, combined with newest techniques in the field.
At a time when German film is struggling, Lotte Reiniger presents her great shadow feature of several acts. At a time when it has become doubtful that traditional ways alone will accomplish something, Lotte Reiniger is breaking new ground. An attempt? An exploration and an experiment? More than that, the consistent execution of revolutionary ideas. This film is visual poetry, a miracle to be experienced, as exciting as it is artful.
Reiniger spent 3 years working on this film, experimenting with the new mediums of expression, as well as over 60 years in the animation and cinema industry, handcrafting over 70 films. With no doubt, she is definitely a pioneer of the world of animation, always eager to create more and more, with no hesitation in finding new means and instruments to assist on her journey that changed the industry forever.
The main technique Lotte Reiniger is known for is her use of shadow puppets to make silhouetted animations. Inspired by European shadow puppet shows, they are created by connecting cardboard segments with pins, which were sometimes reinforced with lead, and animated by moving and rotating the segments at each joint. These sharp, contrasting forms allowed for great visual readability and contained many intricate details. In her animations, Reiniger displayed an understanding of relative resolution, giving background elements less detail and complexities in movement, while foreground elements appear more elaborate. Reiniger's animation style struck a balance between theatrical and film acting, creating expressive characters through subtle movements. Very limited facial animation was possible in this style, as heads were typically a uniform black. To compensate for this, Reiniger mastered conveying emotions and characters through side profiles and eye movements. Like hieroglyphics, with flatness being of their essence, these images were among the first to show us how to dance on a tightrope between sincerity and whimsy.
One of Lotte Reiniger's most influential inventions was the Tricktisch, or trick table, that would later become the multi-plane camera. Lotte used an array of different glass panes, separated vertically. A translucent backlit background was added on the bottom of the rig, and a camera was placed on top. This system allowed multiple elements to be positioned in different layers, so that they would not get tangled or obstruct each other during the animation process. The vertical orientation of this setup allowed easy access to the characters and props, positioned on the different glass panes. An important distinction between the trick table and the future multi-plane camera is that she used the trick table to separate layers, kind of like how cell animation was used in hand-drawn animation. Disney, who later adopted and further developed the multi-plane camera into a more complex setup, added moving glass sheets to create dolly in and dolly out shots with perspective changes. This is the camera moving in and out of the shot, and not only tracking shots with parallax, or the camera moving side to side. Reiniger experimented with many techniques in her films, designing and streamlining her own pipeline in the process. For example, she used various miscellaneous materials for achieving different visual effects, including scattered dyes for reflections in moonlight water, sand and thin layers of wax for morphing abstract visuals, projected light patterns for a whimsical effect, and cotton for creating a dreamlike border around a vision. It's also interesting to see that sometimes she also carefully shaped the look of the scene by creating shadows with sands that would very softly be cast on the translucent papers she used as backgrounds. She was one of the first animators to use overlapping animation, with multiple characters and objects moving at once in different layers. When displaying characters at different distances from the camera, she used cutouts of different scales, ranging from high detailed close-ups to distant and greatly simplified background characters. Combined with the carefully cut out patterns, these techniques give a painterly, detailed look to her animations that could otherwise not be achieved with hand-drawn animations, as the drawings would be too detailed to reasonably be drawn every frame. Reiniger had a pipeline that involved careful mathematical plannings of frames, especially important when animating to music. She took notes and improved her efficiency over time. This is visible from the impressive amount of automation and streamlined repeatable techniques used in her work.
Music was a big part of Lotte's work. During her long-lasting career, she set many of her animations to classical music, such as Mozart and Offenbach. The characters can be seen to walk in, step with, and dance along to the background music. Visual rhythm is achieved in marching scenes by moving all characters in sync with each other. For her first animated feature film, she hired the German composer Wolfgang Zeller to write the pieces that would later be played alongside the movie, silent at the time, in various cities across the world. As sound became an integral part of cinema, Lotte didn't wait long to start exploring the interplay between music and image. One example of music in her work is the 1933 short animation Carmen, Reiniger's rendition of the famous opera by Georges Bizet. Carmen tells the story of a gypsy woman who seduces a soldier in the southern region of Spain. The 9-minute animated short film times the movements of the silhouettes to fit with the musical tones.
Lotte Reiniger planned out each animation thoroughly, using storyboards, character sketches, and scripts to build a concise art piece. It is possible she developed this practice through her experiences prior to animation, as a set designer, actor, and illustrator to books and newspapers. She uses negative space effectively to increase contrast and create a more visually striking image, and uses creative composition to tell a story. She also allowed herself creative influence on the stories she told, shaping characters in a unique way so viewers don't have problem differentiating them on screen despite being flat and colorless. A great example of this is the sorcerer from The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, who appears in Reiniger's film with exaggerated eyebrows and a beard, in contrast with the original text, Arabian Nights, where he is devoid of facial hair. The free twist on a character and his overall scrawny appearance, and movements beyond what seems to be normal, emphasize their magical abilities. The sorcerer's body is unbalanced, in contrast to the beautiful shaped Prince Ahmed or Aladdin. It feels like he's being squished by space around him. However, the true contest is seen between the sorcerer and his bloody enemy, the witch, whose body and overall silhouette consist of outward curves and shapes. Lotte's genius in the creation of recognizable and expressive silhouettes is notable and relevant even nowadays, as they are equally important for the perception of any character in any media.
Back when standard colored film wasn't an option, Lotte would do her animations in black and white, but would dye her films per scene to accentuate the mood and give visual variety. So instead of black and white, a sequence could be black and yellow, and another would be black and red, for example. In the 1930s, when colored animation films became popular, the audience wasn't as interested in the old monochrome films anymore. Because of that, Reiniger had to find a way to reinvent her techniques, which led her into two different animation paths. In one technique, she used a mix of black card and colored gelatin, allowing her to keep the essence of her style. Lotte's work was still made primarily from dark silhouettes, but the backgrounds were now colorful. Vivid colored gelatin of many different colors contrasted against the blank foregrounds and backgrounds.
All the riches in the world.
The second method she discovered was cutting her figures from opaque colored papers, with their joints carefully hidden, and lighting them from both above and below to bring out the colors.
From pioneering new animation techniques and promoting an understanding of readable form in characters to inventing what would become the multiplane camera, Lotte Reiniger's contribution to the world of animation and theatre was immeasurable. Her legacy lives on not only through her particular style, but through 2D and 3D skeletal animation techniques and layering in animation programs today, to name a few. Thus, her legacy will live on, inspiring many generations of artists and filmmakers yet to come.
Nichts anderes zu tun in dieser Szene, als sich höflich vor Cinderella zu verneigen und sie zum Tanz aufzufordern.